Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Two bits of breaking news just in. The first and most pressing has to do with stimulus. The second has to do with the continuing funding for the United States government. Let's focus on stimulus first. And this is a big surprise. This is a lot of news here. So Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have just responded on stimulus negotiations. Now, we have not yet seen Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi's stimulus offer, which was made in private to Mitch McConnell. However, we did just receive a new statement from Nancy Pelosi, which might mean that her proposal doesn't even matter anymore. And this is a very, very big shift from Nancy Pelosi's position on negotiating stimulus relief. Just up to yesterday, Nancy Pelosi was suggesting that we still need the HEROES Act for $2.2 to $2.4 trillion. Well, now we have a substantial shift in the negotiations. Let's pull this up right now. This just happened. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer released this statement. They start off by mentioning that the American people are currently living through the worst stretch of the pandemic. The United States is averaging over 1 million new cases a week. 20% of all patients now hospitalized in the United States have COVID, and the national death toll stands at a very sad 270,000 American souls. Many family budgets and small businesses are at their breaking point. Families all across the country are experiencing the unthinkable, unbearable losses of their loved ones, and many are falling into financial ruin because of the economic fallout of the pandemic. Economists, and this is very true, there is almost no economist that does not agree with this statement here. Economists are warning that the U.S. economy will fall into a double-dip recession without additional federal relief from Congress. This is true. JP Morgan says this. Goldman Sachs says this. Economists say this. People are basically preparing for a double dip recession in Q1 of 2021, which is January through March. While we made a new offer to Leader McConnell and Leader McCarthy on Monday, in the spirit of compromise, this is huge. I mean, we haven't seen this in like 9 months. Nancy Pelosi saying, in the spirit of compromise, we believe the bipartisan framework introduced by senators yesterday should be used as a basis for immediate bipartisan bicameral negotiations. That is huge. This literally means Nancy Pelosi just took her negotiation position from $2.2 to $2.4 trillion down to $908 billion with, some potential negotiating happening here, because she's suggesting this bill can be the basis for immediate negotiations. So she's not saying she 100% agrees with it, but she has now backed off the HEROES Act to jump into this, the bipartisan bill. Let's look at that in just a moment. We'll pull that up. Of course, we and others will offer improvements. Look at how she even worded this. We and others will offer improvements, but the need to act is immediate. First of all, when you say we're going to make an offer, it doesn't even mean that she's going to say, like, I need to have this. She's not even drawing the line in the sand. She's coming into this negotiation week. She's going, we'll offer improvements, but we need to act now. So she's already saying, like, we might just have to take this bill. That line right here, the way she's worded this, of course, we and others will offer improvements, aka Democratic lobbyists, like, we're going to try to get more of our priorities in here, but we got to do something right now. Huge, massive shift here. The need to act is immediate, and we believe that with good faith negotiations, we could come to an agreement. With the imminent availability of the vaccine, it is important for there to be additional funding for distribution to take the vaccine to vaccination. This is actually possibly what shifted the negotiations here. This morning, I posted a video at like midnight about Pfizer's vaccine getting approval in the United Kingdom. That's huge, because that could have potentially now basically lit a fire under Congress's butts, finally, to make them realize, oh crap, we might end up getting FDA approval much sooner than we think, and we need money to get this stuff distributed. Because keep in mind, every single day that it takes longer to actually get the vaccine distributed, the economy suffers more. And this isn't trying to say that you should absolutely take it or you have to take it or whatever. This is just to say that if it's available, our economy gets back together or gets moving again faster. But anyway, this is a massive shift from Nancy Pelosi. She's basically throwing in the towel here, saying, fine, we'll take the $908 billion deal. That means she's literally come down over $1.3 trillion to get something done now. The distribution will be led by states, further increasing the need for state and local government funding. Mitch McConnell's stimulus proposal does not include state and local government funding. In light of the urgency of meeting the needs of the American people and hope that the vaccine presents, it's time for Leader McConnell to sit down with Democrats to finally begin a true bipartisan effort to meet the needs of the country. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit more, because we got to look at the bills to see exactly what's in these right now, and talk about this. This is very big, and this is a huge shift. We haven't seen this in this entire summer or 9-month period that we've been sitting around here waiting in the pandemic for a second stimulus package. So what kind of additions could Nancy Pelosi potentially offer? The first one I expect is stimulus checks. The reason I expect stimulus checks to be offered by Nancy Pelosi is because guess what we heard from the White House not once, but twice within the last week. Last week, we heard White House trade advisor Peter Navarro say, we want stimulus checks, in addition to PPP funding and unemployment pay. But on top of that, we also heard today Larry Kudlow, the director of the National Economic Council, say that stimulus checks are a priority for the White House. And now, while Mitch McConnell does not think that stimulus checks are a priority, Nancy Pelosi does, Republicans do, the White House thinks stimulus checks are a priority. There are obviously some Republicans that don't think stimulus checks are a priority, but it wouldn't shock me in the sense of negotiation. It would not shock me at all for the bipartisan group of Republicans and Democrats in the Senate to say, hey, let's put together a bipartisan package that's under $1 trillion. Let's purposefully leave stimulus checks out. Let's put that in front of Nancy Pelosi and say, hey, how about we get this done? And then they might have already preempted Nancy Pelosi's response, where Nancy Pelosi might say, well, we got to have stimulus checks. Okay, all right, you twisted our arm. We'll put stimulus checks back in. Just negotiating wise, would not surprise me, especially since the White House just this morning reiterated that they want stimulus checks. This is, again, different from what Mitch McConnell said yesterday. Mitch McConnell said, I got confirmation from Donald Trump that my stimulus package is the one that we're going to pass. Well, but then when he was asked in questions, it was not Donald Trump that Mitch McConnell talked to. It was Steve Mnuchin that was talking on behalf of Donald Trump. So Mitch McConnell kind of stretched that one a little bit. But what else could we expect Nancy Pelosi to counteroffer this bipartisan proposal with? And I'll pull it up as well so we can see it. But this is a huge shift, big shift here. So we could expect Nancy Pelosi to counter on unemployment pay. It is unlikely that she is going to request $600 per week. It's possible that she might ask for retroactivity for unemployment checks. Maybe we'll go back 4 to 8 weeks. Or she might not push retroactivity at all. We'll see. Requesting $400 per week as a boost instead of $300, I think that would be an easy win for Pelosi. I think checks and a $100 increase on unemployment boost, I think those two items would be an easy win for her. Getting additional state and local government funding would potentially be difficult. However, keep this in mind, and this is what's so fascinating about this bipartisan proposal here. So here's the bipartisan bill, which Nancy Pelosi has basically just resigned to. She's basically said, we will take your $908 billion stimulus package and we'll get a deal done. I mean, this is huge. I mean, this is almost as good as saying, finally, stimulus agreed to. We're not going to do that, though. So 900, and again, she's going to offer improvements. We'll see if we can get those stimulus checks in there and some changes to the unemployment boost. We'll see how those negotiations evolve over the next couple days. Obviously, massive news here. But take a look at this, the state and local government section here. What's really fascinating about this section, that's huge. What's fascinating about this section is that Mark Meadows, on behalf of the White House, says, look, we realize that state and local governments have spent about $275 billion. Well, this bipartisan bill is only offering $160. So it's entirely possible we could see Nancy Pelosi come back and say, yeah, look, worst case scenario, I'll take the $908 billion deal. In the meantime, I expect her to push for the stimulus checks, which the White House said again today, we want stimulus checks, possibly a higher boost. I'm not confident that she's going to go for that retroactivity, even though she's been saying time and time again, it will be retroactive. It will be retroactive. It just wouldn't surprise me to see that get dropped. And then if we could boost the state and local government funding up to $275, I could see this bill coming from a $908 billion bill, which honestly is only going to cost about $300 billion because of the money they have left over. They've got roughly $550 to $600 billion left over. I would not be surprised to see this merge up to like a $1.2 to maybe $1.4 trillion deal. Take off the 600. What do you got here? You've got really a $600 to $800 billion deal of new money. Would not surprise me at all. And especially with Nancy Pelosi's shift here, essentially resigning herself to this. This is not bad, but this is what we've got. 288 for small business. This is mostly the PPP. You could get a first PPP draw if you've never gotten the PPP yet, if you have 10 or fewer employees. $180 billion for the unemployment boost just to get us through January. $82 billion for education. Wouldn't surprise me to see her try to push this up a little bit. Remember, Republicans actually offered $105 billion for education. Nancy Pelosi wanted somewhere around $224 billion. This one's only offering $82 billion. Now, this is way, way better, obviously, than Mitch McConnell's deal. So it's huge that Nancy Pelosi is going for this. By the way, quick shout out to the members, those of you that are chatting here. I'm going to go through and answer these questions. Finally, Nancy willing to negotiate. You are so right, Blanca. You are so right. Like, it has been literally zero, like almost zero movement from Nancy Pelosi. She did come down from the 3.4 to the 2.4, but that was really only because she shorted the time frame and shortened the time frame, I should say. But think about it. When Nancy Pelosi shortened the time frame of the HEROES Act, the time was already burned, right? Because the HEROES Act was passed in May. Well, she already, by the time the HEROES Act would have even been a possibility, right before the election at the end of October, you would have already burned 5 to 6 months. So it's like, okay, well, I guess we don't need all that extra money anymore, So Nancy Pelosi has not really come down ever, except for today. That makes today a very historic day, and it comes on the same day as this Pfizer vaccine announcement in the United Kingdom. And this is absolutely huge. So huge move here. It would not shock me, by the way, if there was some Biden influence on this. Yeah, now, and not taking partisan sides here, but Biden tells us that any package that gets passed in the lame duck session of Congress will be a starting point, and that will get the rest done when Biden has the power to do so. Now, that is likely what convinced Nancy Pelosi to finally agree to come down and accept a $908 billion stimulus package. She believes we may as well get something now, get what we can get done now, and then come back for the rest later. Nancy Pelosi is also confident that they're going to win the Senate when we have the Georgia runoff on January 5th, which will be it'll be very, very politically divisive, let's just say. I mean, the amount of money that's flooding into Georgia already to campaign is insane. I think we're approaching $300 million for 2 Senate seats. But anyway, big move by Nancy Pelosi here. And keep this in mind, too. This is something that just broke in the last 30 minutes to an hour here. 2 more things. So one thing that just broke is, and background on this to explain this properly, you got to know what the Corona Bus package is. So an omnibus package is the government spending package of 12 bills. So think 12 bills together. One of those bills, for example, is the military funding bill. That's your omnibus spending package to keep the government funded for the fiscal year of 2021, which ends at the end of September in 2021. The other option, instead of doing an omnibus bill, is you could do a continuing resolution, which just kicks the can down the road and you deal with the government funding later. Well, right now, lawmakers say the only way they think they can get a stimulus package done is if it's tied together and blended with the government spending bill, which is due on December 11th. And that's why they're calling it the Corona Bus bill. Instead of omnibus package, it's the Corona Bus package. Anyway, I think people are just joking with the name of that, but it makes more sense of the situation here. With Nancy Pelosi making this massive negotiating shift and basically shaving $2.4 trillion off her demands, and with the language she used, essentially throwing in the towel here, I think the odds of us getting a stimulus package by December 11th here have just dramatically skyrocketed. And again, I want to point out her language here when she says that the spirit that the bipartisan framework introduced by senators yesterday should be the basis for immediate bipartisan negotiations. That's what she's saying. Look, that should be the basis. And then says, of course, We and others will offer improvements, but we just got to get something done. She's throwing in the towel. She's going to say, hey, let's do the stimulus checks. Let's do unemployment pay, a little bit more of a boost. Let's see if we can get some more state and local government funding, which I think she'll be able to get something. But I think she's ready to roll. Just the way they even worded that letter, like I would not have written the letter like that if I were her staff, because I think she just literally gave away the negotiation. She showed her hand on that one pretty clearly. Now, good news that we have the shift from Nancy Pelosi. It would be bad, and I wanted to clarify this point, it would be very bad if we get a continuing resolution that kicks the can down the road, because that would also kick the can down the road on stimulus talks. So that's increasing the pressure on both sides to negotiate. Because if we can't negotiate a stimulus package, maybe we can't negotiate a government funding bill, then they kick the can down the road again, and that just delays stimulus even more. That would be bad. In other news that just came out, Congress so far has reached an agreement on a military spending bill, which is part of this Coronabus or omnibus spending package. Donald Trump is still threatening to veto this unless Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act is repealed. You can check out my video on that from this morning. But all in all here, let's just go back one more time, and then we'll look at a few questions here and wrap it up. Let's go back one more time just to look at what Nancy Pelosi just agreed to. We'll pull up the package here again. The text that I've written is what I expect Nancy Pelosi to negotiate back with. But what do we get here? If Nancy Pelosi does end up fully accepting this $908 billion, we get that second PPP round. We get the first stab at a PPP if you have 10 or fewer employees. The unemployment boost through January of $300. I'm sorry, it's actually 18 weeks. Correction, I'm mixing bills here. You get 18 weeks of unemployment pay at $300 per week with this package. Money we've actually got. Oh, I totally forgot about this. This is huge. Totally forgot. Nancy Pelosi is potentially going for this as well, because look at what we've got here. $25 billion in rental assistance. Folks, the current estimates from like the National Multifamily Housing Council are that as a country, we are behind about $23 billion in rent. Well, if we get $25 billion in rental assistance, we could literally eradicate all of the back owed rent that's due and literally be in a situation where the eviction crisis that we're fearing could come in Q1 of 2021 evaporates with this, with Nancy Pelosi just rolling and taking this. And yeah, we've got another comment here that Nancy Pelosi should have just taken the $1.9 trillion deal, Chris says. No kidding. No kidding. Hindsight, right? And in hindsight, she probably, if she could go back, she'd probably change her mind. But I would expect her to negotiate on the stimulus checks. We got to find out what the detail is on this $4 billion for student loans. We do not know this yet. Obviously, $10 billion for the post office, lending support, some of these other things. I think this is a big thing that's pressuring lawmakers here as well, is getting that money situated for distribution. So Mitch McConnell's deal, much, much worse. Mitch McConnell's deal doesn't provide us that unemployment boost, and it doesn't provide us any state and local government funding, which state and local government is going to be necessary for distributing this vaccine. But yeah, folks, this is probably the biggest news we have gotten from Nancy Pelosi. Let me quickly see if Nancy Pelosi has said anything else on this, because I did see she was talking a little bit ago, and I just wanted to see if there's anything new before we wrap up. So this is the same. Families experiencing unthinkable loss. We saw this. That should be a basis. No, she basically just copy and pasted her statement on Twitter. So nothing new from Nancy Pelosi there. And I know Schumer is pushing. Let's see here. 37 minutes ago. No. Okay. Yeah. No, nothing other than this statement so far from Schumer and Pelosi. I would not be surprised to see some kind of press conference at some point from Democrats. Certainly, if not today, then tomorrow. Usually they do the morning press conferences, and I have to say it's Wednesday here, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have been pretty quiet. Chuck Schumer talked yesterday, but he said, hey, we made a deal or we made an offer in private, but we're not disclosing any of those details. So very interesting. We also have, apparently, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin is trending on Twitter. Oh, right, for for asking if somebody is in fact a lawyer. Okay, so drama of politics. But anyway, bottom line, massive news from Nancy Pelosi. Thank you so much for being here to watch this with me. Let me answer quick questions here. Do you think she's waiting on a bigger package while Biden's in office? Yes. I think she will take what she can get now. And then that way, when they do a bigger package with Biden, it won't appear that big, Because think about it. If you want to do a $2.4 trillion stimulus deal and you could get $1 trillion knocked out now, well, then you're only talking about doing $1 trillion stimulus deal or $1.2 trillion stimulus deal in January, February. With COVID getting worse, don't you think they would pass the stimulus? Yes, I'm very, very confident now that we are going to see a stimulus package of at least this $908 billion. It looks like Nancy Pelosi has rolled on that, and she has given up and is taking it. All these new packages that are presented continue to get rejected. They don't care about us. It is true. It does seem like they don't care about us, but I have to say I'm optimistic on Nancy. Nancy Pelosi just made a huge move. This is a massive shift from Nancy Pelosi. They need to pass something before their vacation or else. Yeah, no kidding. I like the or else ... We got to go raid them. But thank you for watching every day. What masks do you have for our kids? We have stay inside. Seriously, like we've been stuck inside. I just think they will pass this tiny bill and never truly help. It's possible. And that's the unfortunate thing. I think right now we just have to take what we can get. Because even just honestly, even just the rental aid provision in here, and this isn't to say that state and local governments don't need help. This isn't to say that, the people on unemployment don't need help. But even just the rental aid is huge. The UK approval put a stop on our hard line. Completely agree with you. Completely agree. Thanks to your guidance, my stock portfolio is up 42%. Oh, thank you for that. Do me a favor, like this video. Oh, I appreciate that, Chris. I hope this isn't the only bill to just cheapen out and look good at no extra 600. Yeah, we'll see. She promised retroactive pay, so we will see what additional offers Nancy Pelosi makes. She should take the bill as is and just ask for $1,200 or a little more in stimulus checks. Just get it done. I agree with you. And I actually believe that she will try to negotiate in stimulus checks. $1,200, push it up to $400 a week. Bingo. Thank you for the donations here. $600 is too much. I'm way too much. The $600 per week is way too much, you're saying. Yeah, $600 per week was just not very politically popular. If not checks to people, what's the point of stimulus? Yeah. And will unemployment be retroactive? That's the big question. Right now, the answer is no. But we'll see if Nancy Pelosi will negotiate that in. Thank you so much for the chat questions here, folks. Thank you for watching. We will see you later with more updates as they come in. Appreciate you as always. And subscribe so you can be part of the pre-1 million subscriber crowd. That way you can always remember you've been a subscriber since before 1 million. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you. Bye.